sometimes with dividend stocks, you hear all this terminology. It's like, what does that mean? Ex-dividend date? What's all that? So in this video, we're going to look at the 4 key dates you need to really be aware of and what the difference are between each one. So I'll be real quick and we'll cover those 4 dates. By the way, in the description below, I've got links to all my courses. I got some free courses, and I have a course specifically just on investing in dividends, plus a big overall stock market course and personal finance. Got a lot of different courses down there. So do check out the courses to really help your education. All right, so let's look at these 4 key time periods for dividend stocks and these big announcements. So the first thing that'll happen with a dividend stock is a company doesn't have to pay a dividend, by the way. They usually do, or they maintain it, and they usually pay it every quarter, because if they don't pay a dividend, or they skip a quarter or cut their dividend, then their stock price goes plummeting because people figure there's a problem. So they like to pay dividends regularly, and they like to pay them typically every quarter. Though there's some that pay monthly, typically it's quarter. And so as around those quarters, they have different dates. And the first date you're going to have that you need to pay attention of the 4 is the declaration date. And all the declaration date is them declaring, the board of directors or the CEO will declare that we're paying a dividend. It's like the town crier, right? Or, well, that's really old town crier. It's like somebody getting out on the street and saying, hey, we've got pizza on sale today. You get free garlic knots with your pizza if you come in today, staying outside their pizza restaurant, right? The declaration date is simply like, hey, we're having another good quarter. We're going to pay back our shareholders. We're going to give them a dividend. We're going to give them some money just for holding the stock. So we're declaring a dividend. So they announce a dividend, and at that time when they do the declaration, they're going to announce how much is the dividend. A lot of times dividends will go up. Dividends grow sometimes on a yearly basis. That's a good thing. We want dividends to grow. But if you own stock, if you own the stock, they're going to give you a dividend. All right. So then they'll also announce, usually at the same time, they'll announce the ex-dividend date. And that's the key date you really want to look at, and can get confusing. The ex-dividend date is simply the date in which the stock begins trading without its dividend, right? They've declared a dividend, but they haven't paid the dividend yet, right? So we declared, but we're going to pay here in a short time in the future. That date, as far as when they're going to pay in the future, is out here, but before that, there's what's called this ex-dividend date. And all that means is that you have to own shares of the company in that stock before that ex-dividend date, or on that ex-dividend date, or before the ex-dividend, really. You have to own shares in it, because if you own it after the ex-dividend date, you're too late. You're not going to get paid the dividend, right? So if you see a stock, they're going to pay a dividend, you're like, ooh, I want to invest in that stock. Maybe I'll get that next dividend. Make sure you buy, if you want to get that dividend, to get it before that ex-dividend date. So they're declaring a dividend. Hey, we're going to pay a dividend, and here's the cutoff that you have to own stock, to get paid the dividend. So that's all the dividend date is, or ex-dividend date. Probably the most important one to look at to make sure you're getting in time for the dividend date. There's also a record date that'll come after that, which is really where the company, all they're doing is checking their records to see who's entitled to receive the dividend, right? So, the main date we need to look at is that we're in by the ex-dividend date. And then after that, the record date is really just the company doing their check and getting it all lined up to pay the dividend. So some people think, oh, what's the record date? And it's less important. The real important date is the ex-dividend date. And the other maybe the most important date is the 4th one, which is the payment date. When do I get my money? I want my money. So that's the date on which the dividend is actually paid to shareholders. So if you own like a stock in a brokerage account, you'll get paid right into your brokerage account. They'll handle all that for you, for example. A lot of brokerage accounts, you can actually get pre-set up to tell them whether you want it to go into cash that you can then later reinvest in the brokerage account, or where you want them to issue a check right away, or have you get paid right away, move to your bank. Or a lot of people do is they'll set up for dividend reinvestments. And that's a bad strategy, where you take the dividend that's been paid and immediately buy that stock or some other stock or a mutual fund or ETF automatically. So you're not having to manually do it each time, every time a dividend's paid. It's just going back in and doing it. I've done that a lot. I've done that, most of my whole life, and it's great because I don't have to try to keep track of all the dividends and where they're getting paid or anything. If I own a stock, then I just let it kind of keep rolling and keep buying more stock and compounds and grows over time. All right, so those are the 4 key dates. When's it declared? Hey, we're going to pay a dividend. The key date, you got to be in before that ex-dividend date, so watch that. Look for that ex-dividend dates. Record date, not so big, just that's where they're doing a double checks. And then the payment date, you get your money. All right, so there, I hope you understand that. I hope it makes sense. Those are the 4 key dates to look at. If you want to learn more about investing in dividends, again, I have that whole entire course just on dividend stocks. It talks about this, but goes in greater detail on how to pick the right stocks and can they pay the dividends. We look at payout ratios, all sorts of different things. Dividend yield, all sorts of things that you'll want to learn about. If you were interested in dividend stocks, I would highly recommend that, or my big all-encompassing course around investing in stocks as well. So check those out. I'd love to have you check those out. So with that, that wraps wraps us up on the 4 big dates. Good luck to you, and good luck and best of luck on all your investments.